Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 16th of May, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So over the weekend, I was thinking about, my journey within crypto and kind of like when I started to where I am today, basically, and in context of the markets. Not so much kind of like the fundamental side of things, but kind of like, the markets, the investing side of things and all that stuff there. And I kind of put out this tweet today where I said, it actually took me 3 quote-unquote crypto cycles to make it. In 2013, I was around, I bought Bitcoin, but I wrecked myself trading. I remember trading like Doge and Quark coin and things like that, and I just lost so much BTC. And back then, BTC, obviously, during that bull run, peaked at about 1,100, I believe it was. But when I was doing all this trading, I think it was like a few $100 or something. So it wasn't like a lot. I didn't have much Bitcoin back then. And that's why I was trying to trade, right? Because I was trying to like make more and, make it, so to speak. But then the market crashed, MT Gox collapsed, and I sold in 2014 because I actually thought Bitcoin was dead. I was one of those people who thought Bitcoin was dead, crypto was dead. There was no Ethereum or anything like that. There was Bitcoin and all of its forks, and it was just like such a boring ecosystem if the price wasn't going up, to be honest, right? Especially for someone like me who isn't into a lot of the stuff that Bitcoiners are into, like libertarianism and stuff like that. Like, that's just not my jam. It's not my vibe. So then, I came back in 2017, bought ETH back then, wrote it up. I still didn't sell anything, right? I stayed for the bear market though, and I bought more ETH. And then in 2020/2021, my investments finally paid off. And I ended this tweet by saying, crypto investing is a marathon and not a sprint. Now, I figured it'd be topical to talk about this today because I know the markets have been turbulent. I know a lot of you guys listening are kind of like first cyclers. Like maybe you entered in 2020, 2021, and kind of like you've just experienced your first kind of like crypto cycle. Maybe you have made little money, or maybe you made a lot of money. But like it's not very common for first cyclers to make enough to kind of be financially independent or make enough to kind of quit their day job or anything like that, right? It usually happens on the second or third cycles. Now, for me, it did take 3 cycles, because of the fact that, again, I didn't have much money in 2017 to invest. That's always the hardest thing is if you're working a regular job, you don't necessarily have that much money to invest, especially if you have other responsibilities. Like maybe if you're younger and you've been saving up for a while, you can degen some funds in there. But if you're kind of like a little bit older, you have debts, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have like lots of bills to pay, you have a car, payments and stuff like that, then you don't really necessarily have too much disposable income. So there's like a massive difference between being able to put like a few $1,000s into something rather than a few tens of thousands of dollars, right? Because it becomes kind of like an exponential thing from there. So if you get 100x on, maybe $2,000, that's 200K. But if you get 100x on $10,000, that's $1 million, right? So, it's kind of like 5 times more than you otherwise would have gotten, which is a massive difference. Like the difference between 200K and $1 million is huge. Not just on a number basis, but on kind of what you can buy basis. Because with $1 million, you can buy yourself a house, right? You can just pay it all off. With 200K, you're not buying yourself a house. So, and it's always kind of like hard because maybe by the time you save up enough money, the market's gotten away from you. And that's what happened to me in 2017. I didn't have much money. Like I was 24 or something in 2017 or 25 or something. I was working odd jobs here and there in my early 20s, still at uni, stuff like that. And I had finally landed a good paying job a few months before I started buying ETH. But I kind of like got the money, and I because that was my first time getting a lot of money, I spent all of it, to be honest, right? I just kind of didn't really have much of a like a savings plan in place or anything like that. I was still living with my parents, so I didn't really have any debts or anything. So, when I discovered Ethereum, I didn't have much money to throw at ETH, and I also didn't want to throw my entire savings at it, right? Like, that would just be irresponsible. So I didn't. And then I had to kind of save up more money and keep going, and then the price got away from me. And I actually originally did FOMO in. Like, I bought my first ETH. It was very little. It wasn't that much ETH at kind of like $10. I wish I could have bought more. I mean, I could have bought more. I had the money to buy more, but I didn't because, it's my first time buying it. As I said, I'm not going to throw too much money at it, right? I had no idea at that point, where it was going to go, what was happening with it. I just had some kind of very, very high level knowledge of what Ethereum was at that point before I bought. And then it went to $50 really, really quickly. And I'm like, holy shit, it just went up 5x. I need to buy. So I kind of tried to buy as much as I could then. And then it just kept going up, right? It got away from me so quickly. And then I stopped. I stopped. It got to like $200, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna buy here. Like, there's no point, right? And the thing is that it depends, right? There was a point buying if I had sold when it was like at $1,000, something like that. I would have made money, but I didn't plan to do that. I'd always planned to be like a long-term investor. So I saved money. I kept saving money, and kind of like bought as much as I could, but then stopped buying at about kind of like $200 in 2017. Then obviously it went to its all-time high of 1,400, and kind of like came down off of that. But yeah, I sold nothing during that whole kind of like cycle. I think I've mentioned this on the refill before. I sold no crypto until 2020 DeFi summer. That's when I started actually selling something. So, if you count 2013 as my first foray, that was 7 years. All right, I didn't make anything, because when I sold my BTC in 2014, I was at a loss because I had traded away a lot of it, and I sold it once it had come down a bit, and I think it was about the price that I bought it at, but I was at net loss because of the trading that I was doing. So in terms of like actually making money and being profitable from crypto investing, it took me 7 years. Now, I'm not going to say necessarily that's going to take you guys 7 years to do that. I expect a lot of you have probably already made a bit of money from this or cashed out, like especially depending on what you got in and things like that, right? And there's also a lot of things to invest in these days. There wasn't that many back then, but there's a lot more that you can invest in and that are investable, right, from a kind of like fundamentals perspective. But I think the most important thing to remember is that, as I said, crypto investing is a marathon, not a sprint. All investing is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not guaranteed to make money, let alone life-changing money. I think that's what a lot of people fall into. They fall into this trap that they think they're like guaranteed to make money just because they kind of stick around, right? And that's like so far from the truth. For a number of different reasons. I mean, the most obvious reasons to me is that you could be holding on to the wrong assets. Like, just because you're holding on to something doesn't mean it's going to go up. Like, there are plenty of assets from 2017 that never recovered after that bull run. And if you had been holding them this entire time, you would never have kind of like made much money from them. So that's a major thing there. But also, just on a pure kind of like percentage basis, most people aren't going to make life-changing money from crypto investing no matter what. Like, I don't know exactly what percentage I could put on this, but just anecdotally, I would say that it's most people in crypto would not make life-changing money. And when I say life-changing money, I mean kind of like financial independence, quit your job sort of thing, work for yourself. That's just not going to happen for the vast majority of people for so many different reasons. I mean, investing to me is one of the hardest things you can do in the world. And bull markets make it seem like it's easy. No, it's extremely, extremely hard, as I've said to you guys before. So, but I do want to kind of like say that I think you're more likely to make it. You're more likely to make better investing decisions if you're kind of like totally engrossed within the ecosystem. Because I know some people who think that they can just throw some money at BTC or ETH, right? Not pay any attention to anything and just ride it up to riches. At this point in time, guys, like as I've mentioned plenty of times before, BTC and ETH are not giving you a 100x, right? Like for ETH to go to 100x, it needs to go at current prices to 200k, right? Like, yes, I've said before that I think my long-term 5-10 year kind of like target is like 100k and kind of like, that's not guaranteed to happen either, but that's kind of like a thesis that I have depending on all of these things playing out. Like, it's not guaranteed. It depends on Ethereum kind of like obviously being very, very successful. But yeah, the 100x isn't coming from that. So unless you've got like, and even in the kind of like medium term, like if ETH was to go to like 30k or something or 20k from here, that's a 10x. For you to make it from ETH in that case, you would have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into ETH and BTC. So that's another kind of thing, the law of kind of diminishing returns there. For me, I just got kind of like lucky with my timing that I was able to buy ETH at a much lower market cap, right? As you guys know, I bought most of my ETH between $1 and $200. I that was just my kind of like ticket to where I am today. Even though I haven't sold any, it allowed me to kind of like leverage my holdings to kind of like do other things with it. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is that if you actually want that 100x, you have to look beyond BTC and ETH, and beyond BTC and ETH becomes very, very, very hard to invest in anything. As I'm sure you guys have seen by now just how difficult it is. You can ride things up, but are you going to sell at the right time? Because they come down very, very quickly, right? And you don't even notice. Like, you just end up holding something without even realizing it. So I think that's just kind of like the bit of wisdom that I wanted to kind of like impart on you guys, and I wanted to kind of like kind of like say that I think that what I was just saying before, that if you're kind of like paying attention to the ecosystem, getting more involved in it, getting involved not just from like an investment perspective, but also from like a personal perspective where you're getting a job, maybe you join an early stage startup, you get equity, you get tokens sort of thing, and that's kind of like becomes your ticket sort of thing. Or maybe you just don't care about being financially independent and you're fine working for a team or whatever because you're happy doing that, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that's another thing people get into their heads is that, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to be financially independent. That kind of like means I'm not going to make it. No, making it means something different to everyone. Like there's making it financially, and then there's kind of like making it from a personal perspective and a fulfillment and happiness perspective. Like for me personally, I mean, the money that I have would mean absolutely nothing if I wasn't doing what I love. And what I love doing is what I'm doing, obviously with the Daily Gwei and everything I do in the Ethereum ecosystem. But if I was just kind of like sitting around with all this money and I was like, okay, well I can do this, and this, and but like this, and this is like, go on holidays or kind of like do whatever I want because I don't have to work or something like that. I would be bored instantly. I would feel so shit because I would be getting no fulfillment or happiness from that, no long-term fulfillment and happiness from that, and it just wouldn't result in a good outcome for me personally. So I think there's plenty of people like that who, I mean, they're happy just kind of like working and just being financially secure, not so necessarily financially independent, as long as they're loving what they're doing. And I think that should be a goal for everyone. I think the goal shouldn't be to kind of like make enough money to be financially independent or to buy a Lambo or anything like that. Maybe you're into that. I don't know. But I feel like a lot of you guys aren't into that. But I think the goal should be, in terms of like, if you're looking for long-term fulfillment and happiness, the goal should be just to find what you love and just like put all your energy into it, right? Because at the end of the day, like money is so fleeting, guys. Like, and take it from me, money does not buy happiness. Like it buys you nice things. It buys you time, but it's not going to directly buy you happiness. It's not going to buy you that long-term fulfillment. And that's why you see a lot of people who you think, may be very happy, a lot of rich people, that they end up depressed or they end up sad. So I just wanted to kind of like talk through that. I know I've spent the first 10 minutes doing that, but I feel like, at times like these, when the market's a bit shaky, these kind of like things are probably important to kind of bring up and kind of like reflect on my journey, because as I've said, guys, like I've been through everything that this kind of like, this kind of like ecosystem has to throw in terms of like the market. At this point, I think maybe there's other things coming down the line that will kind of like shock me, but the funny thing is like the things that I consider crazy these days are like the really rare occasions, like the Terra explosion and stuff like that. That's kind of like what impresses me these days, right? Everything else is kind of like okay, been there, done that, blah blah blah, whatever, sort of thing. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there because there's a bunch of other things to get through, as you can see from my tabs here. Just wanted to kind of like bring that up for you guys there. All right, so I shared this over the weekend. I finished listening to this podcast on Bankless with Hal Press from North Rock Digital, which is a kind of like ETH only fund here. Guys, like I'm not exaggerating here. I captioned this tweet by saying I didn't think there was anyone left who could make me even more bullish on ETH, but I finally found someone. I'm being serious here. Like, it is incredibly rare for me to find someone who can make me more bullish on ETH. The last person was Polygon. Before that, I don't even remember. Maybe Justin Drake with the ultrasound money stuff. But it's very, very rare because I'm so bullish on ETH already. I'm already engrossed in it. I know the bull case back to front. I know everything there is to know, or so I thought. What Hal does in this podcast is he brings together all of the existing stuff that I've already spoken about, that Bankless has already spoken about, that so many people have given the bull case for Ethereum, and he puts it in a completely different light. I got goosebumps at least 2 times during the podcast, like actual goosebumps as I was listening to it. I was like, holy shit. Because I had never thought about kind of like specifically the merge, like what Hal had thought about it. Even though I had discussed it in a similar way, I just hadn't thought about it in the way that he thinks about it. And he has such a great view on just crypto investing and kind of like the macro scale in crypto in general. I cannot recommend this enough. If you haven't listened to it yet, you need to listen to it. Like, stop this right now. Stop the refuel right now and go listen to it if you have to. But listen to it after it, if you want as well. I was just absolutely blown away. And I actually have a call with Hal. I'm going to be talking to him. I'm looking forward to that chat because like honestly, guys, it's as I said, it's super rare for me to find someone that makes me more bullish on ETH. And when I do, I want to be able to kind of like share that with you guys, make sure that you're on top of this, and make sure that you see what I see. And all the replies to this tweet were basically saying, people being like, "Holy shit, that was an awesome episode. You're right," you know. And this guy here said, "I literally sent that video to my friend and told him this guy is even more bullish than Sassano." And look, to be honest, he might even be more bullish than me. I didn't think that was possible, but you know, here we are, right? So that's another thing to kind of like do, especially given that the market's down right now. This might give you kind of like some more things to think about when it comes to Ethereum's longer term kind of like, the ETH longer term bull case, but specifically around the merge. So anyway, go give this a listen. Highly recommended. All right, speaking of bullish things, the Ethereum Ropsten testnet is going to be doing the merge on June 8th, or approximately June 8th. We obviously don't know the exact date because of the way the merge kind of like happens with TTD and stuff like that, but it's around June 8th. Now, as I've said to you guys before, this is the final step before mainnet. There are 3 testnets, I believe, going to be running through the merge transition, and I think they're going to be 2 to 3 weeks apart. So if all runs smoothly, if there are no major bugs, if there are no kind of like things that hold back kind of like the timeline here, this is how I'm envisioning it. Please don't quote me on this, but this is how I'm envisioning it. June 8th, we have Ropsten. 2 to 3 weeks later, we have another public testnet run through the merge. 2 to 3 weeks after that, we have another one. And then a month after that, we have the mainnet merge. Now, in terms of timelines, this puts us at mid-August for mainnet merge. So as I was saying to you guys before, like August was kind of like what I was thinking. It seems like it's going to be August based on everything else that I'm seeing. And on top of that, I think that in terms of percentages, 0% chance for July, I would say 90% chance for August and 10% chance for September. The reason why I put that 10% for September is because if there is an issue with any of these public test nets, if there's a bug or anything, that's going to add a bit of time onto, onto kind of like getting it out. If it happens on the second public test net, that's going to probably add maybe a couple more weeks onto getting the third one kind of run through the merge, right? And all that sorts of stuff there. So it could still happen in September. But my money at this point in time is on August. I see no reason to kind of like think that it's not going to happen in August, especially because of the fact that we already got like the first public one going live on June 8th, first public testnet going live on June 8th. But yeah, as I said, if there are any issues with the public testnets going through the merge, then it will add time onto it, and we may have to push into September, which might mean we have to even do a separate fork, which could to delay the difficulty bomb, which would definitely push it into September. So that's kind of like my thinking around the merge right now. But as I said, guys, please don't quote me on this. There is no timeline given. This is my own personal timeline based on me listening to core dev calls, reading through notes, reading through, all the kind of like literature being published on this sorts of stuff, and just kind of like a bit of a gut feel as well. So let's kind of like keep it like that for now, but very much looking forward to seeing Ropsten run through the merge on June 8th. And speaking of the merge, there's also going to be another Mainnet-shadow-fork happening. This one's number 5 on May 19th. So all the links are here for you to kind of like go check out. This tweet will be linked in the YouTube description below for you to check out there. Tim Byko put together another thread on the All Core Devs meeting that happened last week. So this is a recap here. I think the biggest thing that came out of the meeting was definitely that Ropsten announcement, but you definitely give the thread a read if you want to learn more about everything going on with core devs here. And just quickly, another thing that Tim Byko kind of like put out today, another tweet he put out today, was he says, a question I've been getting asked a lot lately is why the validator size on Ethereum is 32 ETH rather than, say, 16 or 8. Vitalik has a great explainer here and also covers many other parts of Ethereum proof of stake, which you can kind of like check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description. And then he explains like I'm 5 below in the next tweet where he says, Vitalik highlighted peer-to-peer networking as one of the areas where R&D contributors could be most impactful for Ethereum. Improvements there directly translate to better resilience at the network level or potentially lower minimum stakes. Okay, the explain like I'm 5 is in this tweet here, sorry. So I think I brought this up maybe on the refill when this happened, because this tweet was put out on April 29th. But the explain like I'm 5 version of why 32 ETH is required and you haven't got lower ETH requirements is that it's based on the validator count. So the more validators there are, the more messages on the P2P network, the more bandwidth used by nodes, the higher node requirements, which would lead to less nodes, more centralized networks. So there's a trade-off between the cost to be a validator and the hardware requirements to follow the chain. It's also a stability thing. So that's why it was chosen. It wasn't chosen based on some arbitrary ETH number. It was chosen based on what, Tim says here with the validators and overheads and things like that as well. So I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. All right, so speaking of staking on Ethereum, Leo Gelistic, oh man, I'm kind of totally butchering that, but I think his name's Leo here. Kind of put out a tweet thread where he starts it off by saying, "You may have heard that Ethereum's proof of stake protocol is facing a centralization problem. In this thread, I'll explain why this is happening, the solutions the community is pursuing, and how you can help." I'm not going to go through the thread. I'll link it for you to check out. Highly recommended read. It's actually a really great overview of kind of like what's going on right now. I did want to kind of like give my own 2 cents here on centralization of stake. I think people like overestimate how much, or I guess like overemphasize how much of an issue this is. It is an issue, but I think that what makes Ethereum strong, or what makes Ethereum proof of stake strong, is that it has many defenses against centralization within the stake, like both in protocol and extra protocol. And by extra protocol, I mean at the social layer. So just to quickly run through this here, if anyone attacks the network without the majority share of the network, they will get slashed. And if they do it with the majority share, slashed in protocol. And if they do it with a majority share, they would get slashed extra protocol. The social layer would slash them because the community would come together, because Ethereum has a very strong social layer, and say, hey, this isn't, this goes against the rules. This is a slashable offense. Slash them, get rid of them, kick them out, continue on, right? So I don't think it's a huge issue. I do think that it becomes a big issue when you kind of like consider things like censorship, because if you control over 33% of the stake, you can do censorship on the network, and that's obviously a big issue. But I just feel like, and it's very hard to slash for censorship. It has to be done extra protocol. It's very subjective. It's not something that is very clean, like what the in-protocol slashing is. But other than that, I think that just generally it's not as big of an issue as people kind of like I think it is. And I also think it's a very hard kind of like problem. Not a very hard problem. It's a very hard thing to kind of like have an accurate read on right now, because staking is only one way. So I want to wait for the withdrawals to be enabled on the Beacon chain to see what the actual stake distribution looks like, when there's a two-way thing where you can actually exit stake, re-enter through something else, and kind of like go on from there. Because right now it's one way. There's no way to exit. Like even if you sell your, if you got a liquid staking token like ST ETH and you sell it because you're done staking, so to speak, the ETH is still in the Beacon chain. The ETH is still staking because there's no way to exit that ETH yet. So that's what I've kind of like based my thesis on as well. Like I told you guys about my thesis called the Great Reshuffling, where I think that once withdrawals are enabled, we're going to see a pretty big moving around of stake, and it's going to go to different places, and kind of like maybe some more goes to solo staking, maybe kind of like shuffles into pools and stuff like that. But that's kind of like how I'm viewing things as well there. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight this thread from Leo. It'll be in the YouTube description below. So Ryan Weyart from Polygon Studios today announced that they are working closely with a variety of Terra projects to help them migrate over swiftly to Polygon. We will be putting capital and resources against these migrations to welcome the developers and their respective communities to our platform. We will be sharing more soon. This is really cool. I was actually thinking about this just before. What happened to Terra, is pretty intense. Right, a blockchain actually pretty much died, which is something that has never happened before. I think blockchains usually just fade into irrelevance or turn into kind of like zombie chains. They don't actually die, but like Terra's dead, right? There's nothing salvageable in terms of kind of like the old Terra. Like they would have to fork to a new one, maybe kind of like, or fork back to the old state and kind of like start again, restart the chain, so to speak, because its current state is just it's screwed, right? And if you do an analogy here and you think about this would be like an entire country just disappearing, right? And all of its citizens and its businesses and its kind of like economic activity just gone, right? And like in no man's land. Like the developers and kind of like the citizens are still there, but all their businesses are gone, all the infrastructure is gone, all the economic activity is gone, and now they're looking for somewhere to go. And look, it's not even just about like a country being kind of like removed from existence. Like we already have real world examples of war-torn countries where things just go to shit, and people are like, well, I have to leave the country now, and like they go and become refugees in other countries. It's the same thing here. There's a lot of Terra developers and community members who are now basically refugees of that community and are looking for another community to join, or maybe they join multiple communities. So I think it's good that Polygon and other kind of like ecosystems within crypto are doing an initiative where they're reaching out and being like, hey guys, like you know, your project can migrate here. We'll support you. We'll help you along the way. And kind of like, then you can kind of like start to rebuild. And I think this goes back to a lot of stuff that I've spoken about in the past about how liveness of a blockchain and kind of like security and decentralization are absolutely critical for long-term sustainability, because the worst thing for a developer is building on a platform that just kind of like fades into irrelevancy or just kind of like disappears, because then they have to kind of migrate. And migration isn't an easy thing depending on kind of like what the product is. So I think from that point of view, I think this has showed a lot of developers now that, hey, you need to be building on solid foundations. Like building on shaky foundations can really screw you up and really ruin your project, because all the Terra project tokens are just completely wrecked right at this stage, and kind of like the product is not able to be used because the chain is basically dead, and yeah, I like just thinking through it all is pretty crazy when you keep thinking about it. Like I've had time to process that whole Terra incident now, and it's the shock is gone, but the craziness, like when I keep running through the motions in my head, is still there. So just something that I wanted to share with you guys. But good on Polygon for kind of inviting the Terra ecosystem, or what's left of the Terra ecosystem, to come build with their technology. All right, so this hits home here. So Australia's first BTC and ETH ETFs have launched by CBOE Australia and ETF Securities. Now, obviously, this isn't like a huge deal worldwide because Australia is not the US, and Australia is kind of very, very small compared to somewhere like the US. So an ETF being launched isn't that big of a deal for most people. But I think it's quite a big deal because Australians actually have like a pretty big representation within crypto. Like there are a lot of Australians that own crypto. I was reading an article before that the ATO, which is the Australian Tax Office, has flagged, I think, 800,000 people that have kind of like used crypto exchanges or kind of like interacted with crypto. Now, I think that would be like just an estimate, so it's probably higher than that. For context, Australia's population is about 25 million. You can remove pretty much like, everyone under 18 from that. And then, and maybe everyone over a certain, like most people over a certain age, like 50 or 60 or something like that, because obviously most people investing in crypto are kind of like maybe between like 18 and I guess like 40 or 50 sort of thing. And if you kind of like take that into account, that's a lot of people from that pool, from the pool of kind of like people who are going to invest in crypto. That's a lot. So I think that we're batting above our average in Australia, and I think that these ETFs are going to be good for people to kind of like be able to kind of like buy these things instead of just the spot market stuff, because for tax related purposes and stuff like that. But yeah, cool to see that Australia got their ETFs. It feels like every country is going to get an ETF except before the US at this stage, right? But anyway, I only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to rush through the rest of these updates. Just wanted to kind of shout out that SushiSwap is now live on Optimism. So if you're a SushiSwap user, whether that be, like you like it for swapping or liquidity providing, you can go now use it on Optimism. If you're already on Optimism, very simple for you to do so. If not, you can bridge in and go use it there. All right. This was kind of like news out of the LFG or Luna Foundation Guard kind of like today about what happened to their reserves. So the TLDR is that they basically are the worst traders, some of the worst traders in history. They claim that they sold a lot of their reserves, especially the Bitcoin that they had, into UST to try and defend the peg. Obviously, that didn't work. So now what they're left with is, I think, $80 million worth of assets spread between BTC, BNB, AVAX, UST, and Luna from the original something $1 billion, I think. There was a couple $1 billion or something like that of assets. So they've just completely wrecked their treasury. They're saying they're going to use these funds to make users whole. Well, there's not actually that many funds there to make users whole with. UST is going nowhere. Luna is going nowhere in terms of value. Yeah, it's just not a great situation at all. And I think that this kind of like is a really bad look for them if they are telling the truth about what they did with it. They basically burned their entire treasury to defend what is now a completely failed stablecoin. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of like update you guys on that. The thread will be linked in the YouTube description. All right, just to end us off here, I have four shout outs I want to make. So first shout out, Gitcoin Grants R14 is coming. It's going to be taking place from June 8th to June 23rd. As you guys know, I'm a big proponent of public goods funding. If you're interested in being part of the matching round, you can kind of like put funds up for that. Or if you're interested in just donating, well, June 8th to 23rd, you'll be able to, and your donations are going to get matched. Next up, Kitteh is back with a new NFT piece that he's doing here called Cascade as part of his World of Ethereum collection. So you can see the kind of like trailer, the video trailer here of what this is. And Kitteh's kind of like describing this in his tweet by saying, the market's melted down in a fiery cascade. Among the panicked masses, FUD-class leviathans, flocks of followers in their wake, desperately following the false prophecies into the long dark. So this is a one-of-one NFT. It was for sale today, which was May 14th there. 25% of the proceeds are being donated to the Protocol Guild, which obviously directly funds Ethereum core development, which is very, very cool. So I think this is this still on sale right now? I can't remember. I'm going to just quickly check this for you guys. I think, yeah, it's still got a reserve of 3 ETH here. Kind of like you can go and place a bid and anything on it if you want to, and kind of like own this piece of art. And it's a kind of like clearer picture here rather than the trailer. But yeah, go check this out if you haven't yet. Just supporting Kitteh, obviously because he was the one who did the Daily Gwei Anniversary NFT, as a lot of you own right now. All right, so Superfizz shared today that there's 10 days left, this was from May 14th, so there's like 8 days left now to contribute to the funds matching round at qf.ethstaker.cc to support staking tooling on Ethereum. Pro tip, project entries technically closed today, or May 14th, but they're still accepting new entries. So yeah, if you want to donate towards making staking easier for everyone, then this is the project to donate to. This is a pure public goods donation. Definitely go check this out at qf.ethstaker.cc. And final shout out, just quickly here, I did a podcast or a live stream with David Hoffman on Saturday morning my time, and Eric Connor actually ended up joining in the last kind of 15 minutes. We talked about Terra, the Alt 1 stuff, and all the other stuff that happened last week. All about the merge, bullish merge stuff, and bear market lessons, and just a bunch of other things. It was a really, really good podcast. Or live stream. I actually really enjoyed it, and there was a lot of valuable insights in there. So if you haven't yet, definitely go give that a listen. But that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.